How's it going, guys? This is me, myself, Dom here, and I am showing you a new musical creation thing that I thought I had done a while ago, but apparently there was not so. I finished this at least a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh hey, when was the last time? Let me open this up here. I started this on the 18th of December, and I finished this maybe the next week, and I don't really understand why. I was like, oh, I'll put a new one up, except that I never did this. So this is something new that I haven't done in other ones. I'm doing a twist in my story by Secondhand Serenade, if you didn't read the description. It's in 6/8. I was trying to jump around with the tempo and everything, and it says like 65 for the tempo in 4/4, and then you try to line that up, and it's like, this isn't even 4/4. What are you giving me here? So I had to do some manual fiddling with the tempo and time signature and stuff. But into what you probably clicked on this video for is the rundown. If you don't know what this is the accompanying video to all of my instrumental recreations I make, where I go through all the parts that I used to make this. Something new for this one as well, I used a real LPC. I don't think I've used this yet for any of the other ones, because usually I just try to use the stock stuff and make it sound as good as possible. But upstrokes, upstrokes on a guitar, you can't. For like an hour and a half I fiddled around with the built-in like guitar, quote unquote, in FL Studio, and I couldn't get it to sound like it was doing upstrokes. So I was like, yeah, it's fucking real LPC. There you go. I'm using instead of like the MIDI for the chords, I'm using the actual pattern, so that there's no like clipping, and I don't have to worry about it being. There's a little pause when you set them up in the playhead here in each pattern. When you transition to new chords, there's a tiny little pause, and it was really annoying because the song would get more and more behind, and then there was nothing I could do about that. So I was like, fine, I'll just use the pattern instead of plotting out each note of the chord, which then it still gets behind and behind. I just used the pattern and I used chords instead, which nothing shows up on there because it's reading off the pattern, but so this was a lot less work on my part for this one, which is why I got it done so quickly. I didn't have to plot out each individual chord, and I didn't even have to make any user chords. Nah, just kidding. I had to make user chords because they didn't sound that great. Because they were adding in all of the strings for some of them, and I only wanted more power chordy melodic stuff. So I just have the B, A, B, F, and E right there. Alright, so I use this all the way up with position. Nothing really else I changed, except the timing. All these are down to the side there. So then you have what sounds like this. So on here, you'll see this part. So that's the actual chord that it's going to play. And then this down here tells it whether it's going to be a downstroke or an upstroke. There's no real documentation on this kind of stuff, so I had to look it up. So you hear there. There's a tiny little difference in the short muted strum, so then you get this. And a problem I ran into, which is why I used different colors and I ended up using red over here, is because if I change this back to green and I come down here and I change this back to green, what you'll hear is, if I start it over here, that there's a tiny little thing there. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's certainly there. And it really pissed me off. So, whoops. So right there on 17, I'll see if I can make it any more clear. So for over here, right here. And with this one, you can't start it in the center, or it doesn't know that it needs to play the actual chord. It just tries to play the actual strums, and then it doesn't know what to strum. So you gotta start it from the beginning of the strum every single time, well, the chord. I don't know if you can actually pick up on that, but it is indeed there. Whoa, what did I just do? Oh God. There you go. Get out of here. Oh no. Right. Hold on. So I don't know if you can actually catch that or not, but it was doing some funky get out of here. Some funky stuff with the adding extra notes when there clearly are no other notes, and and getting stuck on certain chords. So like the E would continue to play the E here with these strum patterns instead of the B, so I had to change the colors of all of them. So there's a tiny stupid stuff like that, and it was mainly just in the beginning that happened, and then it was fine after that. You see, everything else is the same color. I couldn't tell you. So like I showed you before, these are the chords, so then you just match them up, the chords, and then you just match up the upstroke or downstroke. All right, so that was a long-winded explanation. So here, for this part, is just this. I just have an extra LPC, and that's just in guitar, regular guitar, so it's single notes. Right, so moving on to the next one. So the violin. I just went with the standard, oh no, whoops. The standard FL strings plugin from DirectWave. My good go-to. This time, no tweaking for the fade in on some of them. So because I really didn't care that much. So standard, the DirectWave strings there. Which is right here. These are not in order this time. It's pattern 6. And then I just added the volume control. Right, so that's the low string. There's a low violin, and there's a high violin, which is the FL strings 2. Right, so if we go on to the next part, which we're just gonna go straight down the line, that'll be easier, is the piano part. Just Piano 1, I've used this before. It's a external plugin, which is slightly better than the built-in one, but it's really not much of an improvement. So that's the full pattern 3, which happens here. and then I just cut it up here. So it's just repeating those 3 notes over and over again. And then when you get to this next part here, which is the pattern 7, you get to this, which is in line with the high violin. There you go. Alright, I'll explain some of this other volume modulation down here in a bit. We'll move on to the next one, which is pattern 9, which is this part you hear. Which, again, just regular strings. And then I go back to pattern 6 over here. Boop, boop, boop. Which was used earlier right there. Alright, so we'll stick with this, and then I'll go back and explain the volume modulation and the percussion that I used. Alright, so pattern 10 is the low strings again, which is just boo-doo-doo. Sounds kind of weird, but it fits in with the song when you play it. And then you have the same piano 3 repeating notes over and over again. And you get to this part, which was probably one of the harder parts in here, besides the whole guitar, mapping out the guitar strums and stuff. And that's because when you get here, I had to balance the actual hits of the violin with the guitar in the background so you could hear them. That is not what I wanted to do. So instead of just... because they're just... and they get lost in the with the harmonics of the guitar. Like you can't hear the low violin until the second part where it comes in. And then you have this part, which is the even faster notes pattern here. Da 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 da. So I opted to not do this, which is supposed to be on the end of every single one here, because it gets lost in the harmonics of the guitar. So you can kind of hear it, but and then do do do. And then random piano hit. There are a bunch of these at the end, just random single piano note hits that I opted to just leave out because they didn't make much sense, especially when you got into this part and they happened where you wouldn't be able to know anyways. So I left that one in there. So same thing here, piano repeating notes. And pattern 12 is more of the low string. Which I put on the high string on there because this goes the repeating 3 note with the low strings happens at the same time. So I figured, hey, I'll just put them on the same one and just change the actual volume of the notes, which I have going on here, which is what happens in a lot of them. So I don't have to constantly adjust and readjust the automation of the notes, so I can just do it once and not have to repeat it. Like if I would to make one of these, I would have had to do if I made one of those, the automation clips for the volume. So then it sounds like this. So just the climbing violin, and then you have the now just regular strum, 8th note strums there, and then you have pattern 4, like we used back here for similarly for that when it comes in with the high violin, except there's one less note. All right, so moving on back here, you don't need those. We'll move back on to the toms. All right, so that would be this here pattern. And as you can hear there, they're all the same loudness and such. So what I did was I just assigned the automation volume to it, and then I did kind of a stair thing. So instead of sounding like that, it sounds slightly more ramping up, and then I just had it fade off, because then it would for some reason the way this particular tom I picked, it kind of just goes and then it's just like a low droning noise until it gets cut off. So I decided to fade it out because that was not gonna fly. So I did just copy and paste, just a tiny thing, just copy and pasted it all the way through. And then cymbals, whoops. Just use the standard tom and crash cymbals here. All right, so we have this whole business down here. This stuff right here. This is for the guitar, and without it, I'm gonna turn this off. So boop, okay, that's off. So without it, it would sound like this. And I wanted to, since I've already gone as far in this song as emulating the up and down strokes, I wanted to make it a little more realistic even further by putting emphasis on some of the downbeats and downstrokes. So, down strums, downstrokes, So I went in and it starts off at its normal level, which is this tiny, tiny bottom one right there. And then it goes up from 86 to 95 here. And then it goes back down before it reaches the next note on all of them. Right, so now it sounds like this. So it adds, I originally had just done 86 to 100%, and that was kind of more of a less than subtle emphasis on the downstrokes, and I wanted it to be like a subtle one. So if you could hear there, it was very, very subtle, slightly noticeable kind of thing, which I think it sounds better overall once you listen to the whole song with it on than if it was just static, same pitch notes all the time, every time. Right, and then of course here, since there are no actual downstrokes that I want to be emphasizing, because you're just doing straight 8th notes the whole time, just took them out because it was kind of like a tremolo effect, if you've ever witnessed that, where the sound just goes from like one speaker to the other, and if you're wearing headphones, it's kind of like disorienting. So it just like warps in and out, and that's kind of what the effect I was getting because of the plugin I was using, the Real PC. Didn't really know how to handle it once it started doing a lot of 8th notes in a row. Like the first couple were fine, like the first measure was fine, and then it got worse and worse and worse by the time it got all the way to the end there. So I was like, just I'll try to not fix that, and I'll just leave it alone, and that'll just fix everything. So I hope you enjoyed. Again, if you have not listened to the whole song, there is a link in on the video for annotations, or a link in the description where you can go listen to it. This has been me as myself at home, signing out. Peace out, guys.